Good afternoon, everyone. Who, all the people who are there and on the other side of the emission listening to us. First and foremost, we'd like to welcome you. We'd like to welcome everyone to this edition of the International Meeting of What If World History on behalf of FBAUP and Research Unit I2ADS. I'd like to congratulate the whole organization for putting up this edition together on such an important topic, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be hosting you in our institution. More than ever, due to the crazy times we're living, it's more important than ever to stop and reflect on the questions on the issues that have been bothering us, or on the landmarks of history who contributed to the current state of affairs in our country, in the world. So I believe this is a very important issue to be aware, not only in the arts, not only in design, but throughout the whole thematic range of issues that you've been addressing during these conferences. So my congratulations on behalf of the Research Institute and the director, and I welcome you all. I welcome you all to be present during this conference and participate in this edition. Thank you once again, and I pass the word.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like also to welcome you to our first conference, the first edition of the conference of What If World History, or WhatIf’21, an initiative by Invicta Imaginaria that is hosted, as Pedro said well, this year by the Research Center of I2ADS, which is associated with the Faculty of Fine Arts of the University of Porto. And in that particular, I would also like to thank Professor Paulo Luís Almeida, the director of I2ADS, Professor Lúcia Almeida Matos, the director of the Faculty of Fine Arts, and which both represent this year the host institutions, as well as the directors of the associated research centers to the Hypothesis Project, Professor Baltasar de Castro of REQUIMTE, Professor Fátima Vieira of SETAPS, as well as the directors of the Faculty of Sciences and the Faculties of Arts and Humanities, Professor Ana Cristina Freire and Professor Fernanda Ribeiro, respectively. The conference and the prior What If meetings would have never become a reality without the support of Professor Fátima Vieira, the Vice Dean for Culture, Museums and Publications of the University of Porto, namely through Casa Comum, that has nurtured so many important cultural projects for the university and the city of Porto. The support of the Rectorate has been invaluable, and to the Dean of the University of Porto, Professor António Sousa Pereira, our deepest gratitude. Likewise, we would not be here without the help and work of all the elements of the organizing, scientific and honors scientific committees, and no one, I hope, will surely find me to be unfair when highlighting the work among all of them, specifically of the I2ADS researchers, Margarida Diaz and Fabricio Fava. They were amazing. I conclude the acknowledgements by referencing Professor Pedro Amado that shares the opening session with me. Thank you so much. What if world history, or alternative or counterfactual history, has intertwined on its DNA both analysis and creativity, as all interesting questions usually have. What if lays an hypothesis and underlines that the answer of an almost childlike questions, which they are, can challenge reality as the way we see it through the facts that tell us to be. And it can bring gravitas and meaning to those facts. symbol of zero, and that affected mathematics and therefore their engineering. And as far as they were concerned, what would it matter for them not to know something that meant nothingness? But nothingness can be a tricky matter and can affect reality in more than one measure. So we also lack, in many ways, our knowledge for our nothingness. Cultures are becoming a bit null through the connections that we have in our present world. We are all connected, we all know each other, so the common knowledge is indeed common, and therefore the lack of perspective of what is lacking is also common and affects us all. And the good side, obviously, is that we have an excellent possibilities for fostering empathy and respect. The downside is that we are lacking perspective of what we are missing. And there is a popular quote that the past is like a foreign country. And it's not only a foreign country, it's an alien culture. It's a different reality. And when we delve in the past, and we delve in the past with childlike questions like what if, we go after answers that bring us a new perspective to what we didn't even know that we are lacking. So alternative history can bring this, and can bring this in a series of fields of academic knowledge, but also for those who feel passion for going further and finding new possibilities. And it's interesting to speak of possibilities because the way we do this is through dialogues of different parts. And it's important that the dialogue exists. And to exist, you have to have difference. Otherwise, we'll not have an exploration of possibilities. But you have, between the two parts, also to have some resemblances. Otherwise, we will not be comfortable enough to embark on that journey. And this conference intends to be a space of safety, for this type of dialogues, to have different parts, different expertise fields to meet, connect, talk, and explore to possibilities, how far they can be, how far they can go, and what they can bring us back so that we learn about what we are missing and we weren't even aware that we were missing. And to do this so in the House of Fine Arts, the guardian of creativity and analysis, it's truly a great joy. So we will start now, I believe, with our first invited lecturers section that is graced with two amazing professors. From the University of Vigo, we have Professor Rosa Ricoy, which is currently a lecturer of political science at that university, while also being the secretary of the doctorate in creativity and social and sustainable innovation, and the coordinator of the teaching innovation group, ODS Cities and Citizenship. And we also have Professor Nelson Zagalo, which is an associate professor of interactive media at the University of U.Aveiro, and the scientific coordinator of DigiMedia, the Digital Media and Interaction Research Center of that university. Professor Nelson also founded the Portuguese Society for Video Games, Sciences, and the Journal of Digital Media and Interaction. In the opening invited lecture section, they will each present a theme, and then we'll freely engage in a conversation regarding both presentations. Professor Rosa Ricoy starts with a provocative subject of imagining a world that explores the consequences of the state of using the power through technology, interfacing globalization, gamification, and the social political control of citizens. Professor Nelson Zagalo probes how alternative stories and interactive narratives are connected not only between themselves, but also with the individual and collective awareness of the meaning each event has. Please let us welcome them through remote presence due to the circumstances that we are all aware of, but nevertheless with a heartfelt anticipation and appreciation. Thank you. We are just being told that through technical difficulty, it will take just a few more instants before the invited lecture section starts. So we will ask for your patience. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm the one starting or not.
Hi, Nelson.
Hi.
It's the way you and Rosa want. You choose between you two which one will start and
Okay.
Carry on. The
Rosa,
session is yours.
Rosa, do you want to start?
Hello.
Hello?
Okay, I am connecting my camera.
Okay.
One moment, please. And when you decide, I don't know what is the problem. Sorry, a moment. Yes, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
The camera is okay. Okay.
Okay, so you want to start sharing your slides?
Okay. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that you can all see my draft. I don't know if my presentation is online.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing everything okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Probably you can start. It's up to us to decide. So.
Oh, I can. Okay.
Yeah. Probably it's better for you to start, and then after you finish, I will do my presentation, and then we have a discussion at the end.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's imagine globalization, gamification, and social political control of citizens. It's a uchronic essay. My name is Rosa Ricoy, and I am a lecturer at University of Vigo in Spain. although the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, and Claude Shannon at a scientific meeting on computer science in USA, that took place in the summer of 1956. The first steps in the field are due to Alan Turing. During World War II, Alan Turing worked to crash Nazi codes, particularly those of the Enigma machine that allow it to be used both to encrypt and to decrypt messages. Alan Turing proposes in an essay what will be now as the Turing test, a test of verbal communication machine that evaluates the ability to impersonate machines as humans, also helping the development of artificial intelligence. One of the first systems that managed to pass the Turing test was ELIZA, an NAT program developed in 1966. The evolution of artificial intelligence continued to mark milestones. For example, in 1997, A2M's Deep Blue computer managed to beat the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov. Real version not told to the world. Turing's career continued until his passing in 2016. The British government considered it appropriate to declare that he had died in order to avoid public exposure and that his works were a secret. Although there were rumors of his science existence and work on cyber uses, no one has dared to state in publicity. Only one author, through an essay, has discovered that Alan Turing was able to develop cybernetics created artificial humans, technically impeccable, that can be purchased in the market. Alan Turing was working all the time in artificial intelligence by Cambridge Analytica, using the technology Facebook had patented and the ocean scale to determine a user's personality from their profile data. The university was fully linked to companies such as Strategic Communication Laboratories, Election Group, Global Science Research, and other subsidiaries. All these companies have created profiles of at least 70% of the world's population through artificial intelligence and algorithms with information from social networks and secret services. Turing wanted to reveal the plot of the British government, and therefore the Prime Minister, David Cameron, denied the pardon to the scientists, arguing that homosexuality was then considered a crime. Also, according to three sources, Alan Turing was found dead in his home with clear signs of having been killed. Cambridge Analytica created psychographic profiles, sexual inclinations, ideology, tastes, character, etc., of at least 70% of the world's population through artificial intelligence and algorithms, with information from our interest visits, our online shopping, the use of social networks and secret services. They already knew us perfectly, better than our partners, parents, family, and friends. It was also possible to profile ourselves, our family, friends, and contracts in general through the shadow profiles. even if we did not use too much mobile or social networks without their consents. Certain programs examine which page, news, whereas your friends has liked. This allowed to you to know the inclination or political interest in a graphic, and even give us a contrary view if we ask. Almost the entire society was transparent, predictable. We are piratable animals. Cable reigns that voted. In the United Kingdom, creates technologies that can even manipulate a video in real time, deep fake technology. It's developed and profit at very low cost. Almost anyone could make a fake video convincing enough for political or partisan reasons. And this upset our absolute confidence, even if this media. From now on, there was the interference of the United Kingdom through Cambridge Analytica in electoral processes around the world, rating places in governments around the world, presidents directed to his interests. Estonia was secretly used as the United Kingdom test country to control its citizens 100% online with 1.5 million inhabitants, and its strategic location a little further away from the European Union countries was the ideal place. First, they began to virtualize all services, the payment of all taxes and all taxations, and then the government and parliament 100% online. These good tests could then be transferred to a lot of other countries. The United Kingdom needed a large production of microchips and other components whose structure it could not sufficiently develop. China began to buy strategic sectors from the United Kingdom in exchange for supplying this production that the United Kingdom needed, and economies around the world became addicted to their imports and global supply chains. Due to the United Kingdom's continuing problems over trade relations with China, Cambridge Analytica provided the mechanisms for Brexit, the United Kingdom exit from the European Union, through a rigid referendum. China tested a system, Sesame Credit, Big Brother style big data, to assess the trustworthiness of Chinese citizens. First, it was done voluntarily and then obligatory, with all type of things in your life. And without the possibility of claiming, because it is based on the infallibility of technology and the only possibility of verification by the autocratic states. Robots were created for like a justice, the first in China and then in other countries. And then growing at a rate above 11%, China became the first economy in the world. And Taiwan and South Korea were definitely an opposite part of China in unprecedented economic and military expansion. Also, their countries in the Southwest Asian peninsular region. China needed an increasing amount of energy. It diversified its needs by consuming all kinds of energy, for example, coal, oil, nuclear, electricity, focuses on the search and extraction of rare earths. China set its sights of Africa, and then numerous countries in Latin America, for example, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, and Europe, such as Poland. Russia also traded with China in the energy market, and Saudi Arabia also soon led China in the principal leader of OPEP. Dependence of the United States supplies grew exponentially. There were a shortage of markets. The USA and the European Union went into severe recession because they did not have the energy and raw materials needed to produce. Large blackouts crossed all countries, and the lack of control in systems controlled almost 100% virtually. And then due to the hegemonic pulse held by Washington and Beijing occurred, for example, the coupling of China, the loss of power of the United States and the European Union, and the total dependence on China, which absorbed the technological power and control that the United Kingdom seemed to have in the world. And finally, China produced a major epidemic around the world, which was created and reproduces from Wuhan laboratories for the whole world. This situation aggravated the global economic crisis and the discontent and other types of things of large part of the population around the world. China went from increasing to absorbing all the large digital companies that had collaborated in the state strategy. In 2020, 10 companies control all areas of artificial intelligence and virtual development in the world. Numerous states were controlled 100% online from China. Cameras and biometrics everywhere, system and credit. In many countries, there are no longer parliaments. This is because decisions are made through balloon proofs that are automatically verified with artificial intelligence and algorithms. It is foreseeing what citizens will want. There are no longer political parties, but strong leaders, because there is a direct communication between leaders and citizens through social networks, using bots and chatbots that are chosen by electronic voting after personalized advertising based on fingerprints and algorithms according to our tastes, ideology, desires, etc. And China pushed numerous hybrid wars to determine the democracies that were still standing through the contamination of drinking water, attacks on critical infrastructures, systemic power blackouts, pressure on migrants at borders, shortage of raw materials and food. And Europe suffered a fate similar to that of Africa, a gradual decline to end up becoming an economic colony in China. And finally, in this moment, outbreak of World War III, possibly, with military and artificial intelligent weapons, robots, drones, autonomous aircraft, etc. But this is my chronic thing, you know. But this, for example, is real. Yes, In the field of justice today, artificial intelligence and algorithms are being introduced in many countries. USA, Argentina, Estonia, Colombia, China, with based on race, gender. It takes into account the area where you live, the social or socio-family context, etc., and not only the crime committed. Many problems, for example, an error in a predictive algorithm that measures the risk of recidivism, or in the decision of the recommended time to go to prison, including bail of subsidy, is a serious concern in relation to the very essence of the rule of law and significant violations of the fundamental rights today. And other problems, for example, in the workplace. Facebook, WhatsApp, for employment and residential discrimination in past years. The justification for the lawsuit was that Facebook allowed advertisers to decide by ethic affinity the audience of their ads. By contracting Facebook services, advertisers could exclude certain ethnic groups, and in addition, predictive technologies can forecast a candidate's salary requirements. In relation to the election, for example, other examples, through different mechanisms, neuromarketing, micro-targeting, geofencing, fingerprinting, algorithms, etc., they know our tastes, desires, but also sexual identity, ideology, to then persuade, convince, bend our behavior a la carta. With only 300 likes, they know us better than our partner, our parents, our close friends. Even if we do not use social networks, they profile us through our most intimate contacts. The algorithm condition is for me algocracy in the hands of many times few technology companies, GAFAMcracia, is altering the application and guarantees a fundamental rights and the social and democratic state of law itself, without a forceful response from the different institutional operators. And finally, an unhappy world very next, if possible. Okay, and dystopia has become real at the moment. In a short space of time, our whole life will be transparent, and perhaps that information will be used to control and all types of societies, or in exchange for receiving prices, consumption, or entertainment, will be even less critical, reflective, equal, free, perhaps. Thank you very much.
Okay, Rosa. Probably now I will do my presentation, and then we do a discussion at the end. I don't know if we have some kind of people watching. Okay. So let me just share my screen if I can. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, optimize, share. Okay. Now it's only sharing. If I do, let me see if I can do the slide, play from current slide, presenter review. But it's not working. Okay, so I will start now with my presentation. Good afternoon to everyone. My talk will be about the understanding of the construction of meaning in the alternative histories through interactive narrative. The idea here is to discuss a bit about how alternative histories can be built, or how can they be structured, and I will work from an example, and then understand the form and structure of these alternative histories, and then compare them with the way that we create interactive narratives for games and for other places, and understand if the mechanics can be put together in order to make us more aware of how these kinds of work come to light, or these kinds of work are written. Okay, so let's start with this example, an example of what would happen if Columbus was defeated when he arrived in America. Okay, this is a possibility, this is an idea, this is history, okay, because in history Columbus has arrived and has built an entire new world. Now we have the United States of America and all the Latin America and all that, and also Europe has gained a lot from this adventure, okay, because a lot of money and a lot of energy and materials came from these new worlds in order to enrich Europe. And so the idea here, okay, if you pick a subject where you know what happened and you change one of the variables, what would happen to this world, okay, this world of ours, okay? The idea then is, it's like looking at a condition, okay? We have a condition where two possibilities arise. One, the real one that happened in our lives, okay, or in the past lives of our ancestors, and the possibility is to look on the other the way, okay. If we could imagine how the world would be without this event happening, what kind of world would we have to live now, okay? And so this is a condition, and the condition gives you in this sense, okay, the condition is something that we use a lot in programming and in managing information. And so the idea normally is with this very simple false and true, but this is not the only way, okay? The condition can have other possibilities, can be condition 1, condition 2, condition A, condition B. It can have even a third possibility, or even a fourth or fifth possibility. So the idea is, okay, if, for example, Columbus would be defeated, then what would happen? What would be the world around? And so we have a path that have been done, and this is the path that we know, the reality that we understand at the moment, okay, that we all share together, this idea that Columbus has arrived in all these ships and has gained territory there and put to build all these new societies, and then new people arrived from Europe and started all these communities. But if that would not happen, if Columbus would not gain the war against people that were living there, if you would be defeated, what could be made of it? And so we have here two possibilities. So in this possibility was really risen by Laurent Binet in one of these last books, Civilizations. It's a book where there's a possibility of having Columbus being defeated, and then the interesting thing is that it's not only that Columbus has been defeated, is that the Incas have picked the ships to go to Spain. Okay, they arrived in Lisbon, and then they go to Spain, and then they start living in Spain, and they start building a new society, a new world in Europe. Okay, so the idea here is if you change a variable, more variables will come after that. Okay, so it's not a question of changing one piece or one variable, is the impact of this variable in all the things surrounding the variable, all the things that come after, and that we are not aware of them because all of them came as a succession of events that made them happen. Okay, and so in this possibility, having people going from Latin America to Europe and bringing some soldiers and some forces and start rebuilding bridges with the kingdoms in Europe, and start doing some politics and doing this would change completely the face of Europe. This would change the face of United States, of Latin America. And so the interesting thing here is to understand how things are interconnected. How do you write something like this and you understand the possibility to really build a world like that. And so the comparison that I'm doing here is with interactive narratives, where we build these kinds of systems. Okay, in the interactive narratives, we start asking questions to people reading books or playing games, and these questions start opening passes. And the more questions you pose, the more passes will open, the more avenues, the more ideas, the more possibilities. And so as you see in this graphic, if you just start with two possibilities in the beginning, with this second box, you see that they will open an entire set of possibilities and events that can happen in one way or in another way. Okay, so of course interactive narrative is more interested in exploring the many different possibilities, and in this case we are not really trying to understand all the possibilities of changing the variable of Columbus being defeated. What we are trying to understand is what would happen. Okay, what if this happened? And so the idea is more to decide, is more to create a new linear path in order to create a defined history, a defined story with a principle, a middle, and an end. Okay, so in this sense, we will not have to face all, we will not have to build all these events. But when you are writing, when you are creating the story, when you are imagining this world, you are going through all these decisions, because it's not possible to not go through these decisions, because every little decision that you change, every little change that you do in the history will have ramifications, will have impacts, will have effects, will change a lot of different linear passes of history. Okay, and so every time you are going through building and writing and constructing, you have to hypothesize all these possibilities, and you have to choose. Of course, if you are building a linear history, a book, a movie, or just telling a story, you need to hypothesize in your mind or write them down and then choose one. And so this is what I'm doing here, is I'm comparing the process, but I'm not saying they are equal. Okay, because they are two different processes. Okay, so in this case, going back to the civilizations, what we have is that all these possibilities create possibilities for entire new kingdoms in Europe. Okay, because all these new kingdoms will be built through the mixing of people coming from the Latin America. Okay, having all these people come from the Incas and even from other groups, and then start changing and balancing the power throughout Europe, throughout all the kingdoms, and changing completely the power of each one of the governors, each one of the emperors, and all that. And also the power of the Pope, the power of the Christianity. What would be the implications if you start, as you see, you just open one question: what if Columbus would be defeated? And then you can have such an amount of possibilities that would change completely the face of our history, okay? The history of Europe and the history of America could be completely turned around. And so this is the interesting point that we have here, and that I'm comparing, for example, just to show you here a possibility. When you start building a story like this, you have one first decision, then you have a second decision, and then you have all these ramifications. And if you do only 4 levels of decision, you can see that you can achieve already 32 choices, okay? You already have to choose 32 different possibilities. And so, of course, you are thinking, well, when you are writing a story that is not related with any alternative history, of course you have to do choices. Of course, the writer of, for example, J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter needs to do a lot of choices. Okay, Harry Potter should do that and should do that and should not do that. Harry Potter should go this place and should not go that place. Of course, this is happening. The question here is that is not related at all with that process, because in this process, you are not simply imagining, okay? You already have a path that have been done, that have been walked by our society, and they have built and they have real consequences. And so you go through all this entire processing, looking into it and finding the changes that the first decision had on all the afterwards, okay? And so the impact is really impressive, and is even more impressive for the person writing this, because as you can see, you have all these possibilities. This means that for the person creating this history, this alternative history, at some point he could have written not one book, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different books from this simple single event, okay? And so this is what we can understand when we put together the process of building alternative histories to the process of building interactive history, interactive narratives, okay? So in the end, the question goes always to the decision nodes. Every event, every relevant event will work as a decision node, okay? Does this event maintains its integrity? Does this event is still relevant, or would happen if Columbus would not be reigning in the Americas? Would the kingdoms of Europe in 500 be the same as they are today if a new kingdoms would come and start devising and sharing and sharing the territories and all that? Okay, we have here these 2 possibilities. This raises the question of A and B, and this is what takes us then to what I think is the most important in this process for the receptor, okay? So the idea here is not only of course, in the terms of the building, of creating the process, this is impressive, and I'm gone only just on the surface, okay? Because I don't want to go too much in detail in the abstractions of structures, but we understand the process, and now we can understand better what is happening from in the side of the receptor. Of course, that the receptor is aware of the real events, okay? When you are reading a book that is telling you that Columbus was defeated and then Incas came and reigned Europe, you start understanding that, well, I need to, in order to figure out completely the impact of all this, I need to connect and compare it to what happened for real in the world, okay? And so this makes you start wanting to understand what was really the first hypothesis, the hypothesis A, where story was made, history was made, okay? And so Columbus was follow this path. and then we start looking at what is being presented by the writer, and we start looking, okay, now it's happening the B, and we start comparing A and B, and we start contrasting A and B, okay? And in the end, what we have is not just a person reading a story, but is a person really in the process of building a critical thinking towards this event, okay? At the end of reading a story like this, you didn't get just an experience, an entertainment experience that was fun, that was interesting, but you get a much more powerful understanding of what made our history, what are we made of, okay? And so this process of critical thinking that appears from the compare and contrast, because this is what we are doing all the time when we are reading, really goes and builds these 5 points that I have here. You start understanding the events mechanics, okay? You start understanding what really happened to Colombo. What has he done when he arrived in America? What has he done to the other people there, okay? What was his approach to that new people, to that new societies? How did he look at them, okay? And so you start understanding the real event and the functions and the functionalities. In the other way, you start understanding the other side, okay? Because now you are seeing the other side of the equation, the B that is being imagined. You are understanding this B, and this B is giving you a light on the other side, okay? In this situation, you have arrived in America and you start interacting with these people, but most of the history that is being told in Europe, in our history books to our children, is being told from the perspective of Europeans, okay? From the perspective of Columbus. We have no perspective of the other side. And so the interesting thing here is really to understand what the other side had in the game, okay? What the other side was really doing. And so we start understanding and questioning our own side, okay? Because when you start understanding there was another side on the equation, and you start comparing what would they do if they were on our place in this situation, this raises the question about what have we done? Have we done it correctly? Because at this point we can compare it, we can contrast it, and we can feel that we don't like the idea that the Incas would come to Europe and do that, and do this and that word, and would do these kinds of things that we have done in America, okay? And so this develops a new kind of empathy, okay? Because we start understanding the other people, the other societies, the other communities, and we start understanding, okay, so this is not just one side story, but this is a story with many approaches, many possibilities. And even if the history, the alternative history presented by Laurent Binet is not real, it has this power to make us understanding what really happened in the A. Because you see, the question of comparing A and B is helping us understanding both, okay? Because most of us know some elements about what happened, but we don't know much about the process, okay? We have been told some things that happened. People arrived in ships and they were great and they were amazing and they were building all these things, and that we can have stories on the other side, but we don't know much. But when you start comparing the story here and you start trying to understand, okay, these Incas are doing this when they arrived in Spain or in Lisbon, okay, so what have we done when we arrived there? Where have we arrived there? How did we manage, okay? And we start comparing and start seeing the things side by side. We start gaining a new awareness of history, okay? So alternative history is not really just looking at what would happen, but in the end is looking at an event from different and alternative perspectives, not in order to go into different worlds, but in order to understand better our own world, okay? So the interesting thing here is that alternative history can become as relevant as real histories, if real histories exist, okay? In the sense that they make you look at the event. I have this cube, this 3D cube here, because In this cube, you have these 6 faces, okay? And when you look at an event, you have all these 6 possibilities, more than 6 possibilities to understand it. We know that in academia, we work with that, okay? We have the perspective of one person, of the second person, the third person, the fourth person. Okay, every people present in an event have a different understanding of what is happening, okay? And so if you start understanding better the position of different persons around the event, you have a better grasp of what is happening, of what have really happened in that world, okay? And so I end here my presentation. I thank you all for hearing me, and probably now we can start discussion.
You are free to start talking among both of you.
Okay.
Both teams were very interesting, and I'm sure you have lots of ideas to exchange. I even feel a little jealous that I will have to watch, but go ahead. The floor is all yours.
We talked about having some previous discussion, Rosa, but we had no time to exchange emails. I'm not sure if I had some ideas about your topic because I've been reading a book on the problems of the surveillance, the surveilling, and all these cameras in China, and also a lot of problems with the Uyghurs that are rising all the red flags at the moment in China. And so I was really interested in your talk and all about these problems. And so I see that at the end of your talk, you really push it a little bit, saying maybe this is not going to end well. Me too. I had that feeling when I finished this last book, and then I start some discussion in Facebook. But I don't feel it completely. I have the sense that all these global empires, China, United States, have too much to lose if they go to war. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what do you think about this? How do you see all these places? Because this is a lot political.
Yes, a lot political, more and more of reality sees imagination, and it will be increasingly difficult to make these creations. There are so many dystopias that are predictions, really, because today is a dystopia in a lot of things. But Nelson, you have taken empire from Spain very quickly. Yeah. Perhaps the Treaty of Tordesillas did not conveniently resolve the division of America. But an intermediate solution, for example, Columbus' triumph was considered many years after his death.
Yeah.
Not at first. He died with some discredit and less fame for not getting a passage between the Atlantic and Pacific.
That's true.
To, for example, Panama.
But the history, well, I just put the spot on Columbus because he's a big figure.
Yes,
but in the book, it starts in the year 1100 with the Vikings coming from the north and arriving in the United States. And it's interesting because they give the Americans the strengthness to not suffer with the illness with the illnesses that Europeans would take to the United States, not to the entire America. And so it's like that the Vikings gave them some strength, some new virus immunities. Okay, virus immunities, and so they were more strong. And so not only Columbus, but other people have arrived there, and they were able to assimilate them, and then starting some conversations, but that they turned wrong, and then Columbus arrived also, and they really robbed the ships from him, and then they came to Europe. So I understand what you are saying. Of course, this is not in one event. This is the thing that we like to do in these kinds of books is looking at one event and say, okay, if we change this, it would change the entire world. But we know this is not true. This is what you are trying to point for sure. that changing only is like what you were presenting about China and United States. We know that a lot of things are happening and more things will happen, and we never know what will. Maybe something can go wrong just after one event, but we don't believe that just one event will make a war, but probably a set of events and a set of countries that start discussing and creating problems and rising concerns. And I understand your point is very relevant, and it's something that historians like to point all the time, that history is not made of single events.
Yes, it's a very important milestones in history, no? Critical milestones in history. I think hypotheses, possible outcomes are important. It's important to understand history and the different possibilities to understand responsibility for our actions and all the time. I think that this is a way of presenting ideas, political concerns, can be very pedagogical.
Yes.
For example, in university, for example, to present this information to the students. I use comics, graffiti, art, music, a lot of culture, no? In general, a lot of to reflect in a more relaxed atmosphere on important issues related to politics and fundamental rights. I think it's a correct strategy to for create very relaxed things. I think, in my opinion.
But you see, in these approaches, pedagogical approaches that you do and that we do around some subjects, having these kinds of alternative histories that people write and create can be interesting, because people start looking into it, looking, oh, what would happen if we change this? Oh, this would have this effect. But then to understand these effects, people need to understand the real effect, the real history. And so they start learning about what really happened in order to understand the alternative facts being presented. Well, in my situation, I was reading the book and I was going to Wikipedia and history websites, trying to understand, well, what happened when Columbus arrived? What happened when Pizarro arrived? Okay, Pizarro was here when, Pizarro lived when, and Columbus was first, and we start understanding all these things that happen because we are being confronted with something that is strange, that is different. And so we need to grasp what really happened in order to enjoy the alternative. That's why it's so interesting and gives you this enlarged perspective on what happened, because you start understanding, okay, so this is connected with the others. So they were arriving in the United States, but they were also arriving in central Mexico or down. And why Brazil was like in Portuguese speaking and all the rest of America was Spanish speaking. And so it is, it's like you were saying, having comics, having books, having movies to present different perspectives, but having these alternative histories that at the first impression we have this feeling that they are strange and that they could even create fake assumptions inside of students, you know. But no, it doesn't work like that. Well, in this case, I'm not talking about the fake news in online, because the fake news online are a bit different in terms of the problem with the fake news is that they are presented as reality. And here, this is a book, and they say, okay, this is an alternative reality.
And in this way, is a very alternative way to teach, no? To teaching in class. They are learning without realizing reflection, also competence as in our graduates, reflections, oral contributions, comparing political systems, for example, international relations.
Exactly.
Other focuses in this type.
Yeah, because you can, yes, of course, in your case that you have, well, in many cases, because I teach mainly multimedia and media and I study works, we are more directed, and we compare works. But I was looking at what you were saying, that you can bring all these different cultures in order to look at a different event, and this is amazing. This is something that we really need to do. But I believe that maybe this approach that you are doing is something that is more recent in the teaching of history, you know, because
Yes.
30, 40 years ago, or even 20, people were presenting bad. The things were like that, and this is what we know, and this is the reality.
Yes, it's necessary because the students are already used to everything, even videos or other classes support, and it's necessary new strategies
Yeah.
to teaching. Yes,
And also because you have students from different cultures in the classroom. We can have people that come
yes.
from Asia and from many
Yes,
places.
I have in my class a lot of people of a large variety of countries. For example, Germany and Brazilian people,
Yeah.
because I have some convenios treatment
Yeah.
with other universities and Erasmus students, and is wonderful to create for more creative activity
and also because you cannot present only the perspective of history and politics from the perspective of someone living in Spain all the time, because
yes.
I have that feeling when we start teaching and we have these students and we start presenting too much focus in our own world, we start looking at these persons and we understand that they see it from the other perspective. And we need not only to be careful, but we need to present an understanding that is more global and that serves the many different ways to understanding the events that happen in the world and that are happening at the moment.
Yes, I am surprised by the opinions of foreign students, for example, for royal crown in my country. No, very questions about this type of Sussex, no, and other things for very for our culture, because there are a lot of differences, but is very controversial, but very good to do a very creative class.
You have touched a subject that I also have felt a little bit, but not too much, because the subjects that I teach are not real too much connected with realities. Well, but even so, sometimes when we are discussing some movies or some games, these questions arise, and these are the sensibilities, the way people look at things, and we need to be more sensible. We need to be more careful in order to not say things that could really damage other understandings of the world or other approaches to the events that we are really presenting. I have this feeling, of course, this is happening, everything is getting more sensible in academia, even for the students from our own countries. But when we have all these different cultures, they start looking at all these different possibilities. And we as professors, we need to understand how to engage all these perspectives together.
For example, Photos Pulitzer Awards, no, about important thing, the vision of other countries on the same policy, and some is sometimes very different. Because they are focused in other issues, other topics, for example. How do they see Spaniards for abroad? Is very important. No?
What we are discussing here is really opening the idea of knowledge being something fixed, and having this understanding that knowledge is something that is changing all the time, essentially it is moving, is progressing. We are all the time going forward in understanding better who we are, what we have done, what we want to do, and this happens also in knowledge. And these alternative histories, what they do is just put the finger on the thing and ask, okay, just don't look at the world in the way that you normally look, but look it from a different perspective. Do the exercise to contrast and compare and critical analyze what could happen or what would change in the world, okay? And so what you are saying goes in the same sense that in the end, the main question, and that these alternative histories are saying to us, is that the understanding that we have of the world is something very fluid, something very, there are no real truth in the world, there are no absolutes, and academia should have known that for centuries, but we know that academia have been very against these perspectives, okay, for the past. I believe this has started in the 50s and 60s of the past century, but now we are really in a different world of academia where most of us that teach these kinds of subjects, we know that we cannot present reality as one fixed possibility only.
Yes, each time the students are less participatory,
Yeah.
I have come to think that I will have to use an hologram to surprise them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is very difficult for me to participate in class. However, I don't see young people as concerned as those of our age, adult, about some things such what I have commented today on data, for example, data protection.
That's true.
Is a question very important, no? Because the same topic is different between adults or people very young.
Yeah, we have here Pedro rising hands.
Okay, because we are now entering at that a period of time where we have to interrupt. Your conversation was really great and we were enjoying hearing it, but there are questions, and Pedro would like to start with one.
I don't know, being an outsider from this history field and looking at our own design and media ecosystems, I was listening to your and watching your presentations, especially the transition from yours, Rosa, to yours, Nelson, and I couldn't help myself thinking about that video from Michael Wesch from Digital Ethnography Group he had a few years ago, where he prophesized the appearance of I believe it was called the grid, the merging of big conglomerates. That somehow more or less happened, more or less. We have these big, huge groups like Alphabet from Google and now the Meta from Facebook. Of course, the New York Times didn't manage to get his way in. But I was wondering, do these exercises, this is a provocation, do you think that somehow these exercises of doing alternate studies or speculative design may somehow help to a self-fulfilling prophecy? What do you think about this?
Rosa.
This is very provocative thing, but at the same time is a real disruptive moment in the world. International relations is the reality, very cool war, the third world war, I think. And it's necessary that students reflecting about these kind of problems, and I think it's a good method to introduce this type of topic, and not to do all the time very theory with a lot of topics, but is more important critical students and critical citizens for the future, in my opinion, sometimes.
Okay. Well, I think that you were asking about this question of having the grid that Michael Welsh talked about, and I was thinking that well, in terms of the design speculation and all that, I see. Well, when you bring into the subject the design speculation, I thought that this is not different from these what if histories, design speculation, because
Exactly.
and even you have this working together, design speculation and critical design, people
Yeah.
working in one matter work also in the other matter.
Yeah.
And so maybe what we lack here in these East alternative histories is we lack something that Ana wants, or I have heard her saying that she wants, that is to build some kind of discipline, some kind of academic discipline that goes forward in pushing these kinds of discussions. Because in design we are already doing this. We design speculative with the critical. And then the other day I was talking with our colleague Pedro Cardoso about also design fictions that goes
Future
from
workshop
another
mode,
avenue. Yeah. And so probably in design we are already doing this in a good way. And people working alternative histories and alternative possibilities has not yet seen, well, I would say has not yet seen the light. How to bring it back, how to bring the subject into the academia. I would say that, of course, one of the first areas where this could enter is the studies of history. Of course, why not having, for people studying history, why not having a curricular unit called alternative histories? This would be impressive. What we have been discussing here is the way you open the understanding of reality, the way you get an awareness of reality. That's what we are doing in design. You are speculating, you are being critical to understand the possibilities of the future and then do a better design. In this case, I believe this would be really helpful.
Yes, it would, but if I may say so, I think part of the problem is that academia tends to be suspicious about imagination and absurd and sense of humor and a number of other things that are extremely important, a part of what being human is about, and yet are looked upon as something minor and
but you see, Ana, what we were discussing here, me and Rosa at some point, was really that something is changing in academia. I see that academia is more open to have not an idea that reality happen only in this fixed way. There's only one perspective or one possibility to understand how reality happened. And so maybe you have here a possibility to start bit by bit.
It's not though, it's a we. This is a collective effort.
Okay, all of us. Okay.
I have a question, nevertheless, for both you and Rosa. And I could ask just about anyone who works and creates, because alternative history is also a creative field, not only academic. Why is it that when you develop an alternative divergent timeline, it's also always, as far as I know, a very pessimistic alternative timeline? You don't have never a happy ending. There is no place for bunnies hopping around and the humanity being kind. Everything is always gloomy, whatever the changes that you do. Why is that?
Yes, pessimistic arouses your attention like a scary move.
Okay, that's a good opinion indeed.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've been thinking about that question for a lot of times. Okay, because I read and watch and play a lot of games that go in these fringes, if not really alternative history, alternative ways, alternative worlds, and all that. And you are right. Most, I would say, 99% of the material created goes into dystopias, and we have a great lack of utopias. There are some here and there, and I found this year I found one science fiction on this subject, an utopia in the future and all that. But I was thinking mainly the idea that Rosa told is on target. I have this sense that an history needs conflict in order to attract the attention. And so the best approach to it is really to build something that goes wrong. Okay. In this book, this science fiction book, one of the many of the commentaries that I've read about the book was saying, well, this is interesting, well, this is a funny world, yeah, but not much happens, everything is good, everything is okay, yeah, but yeah, nothing really is happening. Well, what people are missing is really the problems, the things going wrong. So it's like that. We want these utopias, like you are asking. We would like to enjoy them, but at the same point, you need to shake them. You need to have some conflicts, and then if you start building one conflict, things go wrong, and they and they end in a big conflict that destroys everything. Well, it's difficult, and I believe it's also a commercial thing. Well, what I'm talking is commercial, but is about attention and engaging people in reading and watching. But commercial people look at it and they say, well, if they go into the future, or if it's an alternative reality where everything is so good, nothing wrong happens, and so why would people watch it?
And it will make us feel bad about our reality. So,
well, yeah, that would be a good idea, maybe. Making it so good that would be so sorry to not live there. Well, I believe the approach is that one, but you see, people are very suspicious. They start looking and say, well, this would not be possible because of this, because of that. No, this would never happen. But if things go wrong, people believe.
So we are suspectful of happiness, basically. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, but this is
so. We are, I believe, just about the time to conclude, and well, I really want to thank you both.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was great. I loved it. There are many more questions that we cannot pose. There is no time. That's something that also brings conflict, the time itself and its length. And we hope to count with you again in the future.
Okay.
In a future utopia where we can get to have these conversations once more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
We'll now go for a small break, and we will resume with another session in half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Rosa, ainda estás aí?